I love that.
Hello and welcome to
Absolute Game of
Nerd.
I love your guys' channeling stuff.
We're very loud as it always comes on and crushes people's ears, but we are the non-geek, non-nerd hosts, JP and Rohan, Salt and Pepper, and we have a very famous guest with us tonight, a man who needs no introduction, so I won't give him one, but we have Mon Comics with us today.
Yeah, Brandon,
Hey.
what's up, man?
Oh my God, so good to see. You know, we talk all day in the chat, but like, I need to connect with my Terrificon brethren, face to face or video screen to video screen, and then of course people coming in the chat that all come and hang out with us. And
yeah. And I want to say what's up to everyone there, and we also have to point out Christopher Parker. He's got the Bills icon here. We were literally just talking about this before we signed on. I mean, we were all rooting for you, man. Unfortunate result, obviously, but onward and upward. But stay proud. But anyways, we got Brandon joining us today for a little discussion. It's the discussion title, what comics are valuable. Now, there's a couple of things I want to point out here before we kind of dive into the discussion to kind of to show you kind of where our focus is going to be. Now, this is not specific book related. Like, we're not going to be like A of 15 is valuable. Obviously it is, right? It's more of what are the types of books that we all see that have good, long-lasting, long-term value, right? So we're not really going to focus on like books that get hot and drop, right? What are the tried and true types of books that consistently have value? Now, a couple things to note here, right? This has nothing to do with how myself, JP, Brandon, or anyone that is going to watch or listen collects personally. This has nothing to do. So we're not going to talk about value in terms of like sentimental value, right? Nor, if we say something that, these are just kind of broad general thoughts that we're going to share. Obviously there are outliers. I'm sure, if we say this kind of thing we don't think is that valuable, you may find an example of it is. Again, there will be obviously outliers, but in general, we're going to talk about like when you're looking for books, what are the types of books people typically like to go for in terms of when they're looking for something valuable. And I also kind of talked to these guys about earlier setting kind of a floor value. Now, what is valuable is different to everyone, right? I mean, a billionaire could care less about a 100K book, right? But I'm kind of thinking about what are 95% of collectors, what would they kind of have to think more than just on a whim if they're going to drop this amount of money on a book. And I kind of settled around $200. I think, it's a safe amount of money where it's like, I think most people are going to at least put a little thought into a book that they're going to drop at least $200 on. So if that kind of sets the stage here, JP, Brandon, you guys, anything you want to add to that? And I should say, you also, I don't want to, people may get triggered by what one of us or some of us are going to say. Again, this is not meant to be an attack. This has nothing to do with personal collecting styles. These are just our thoughts. And this is not financial advice either, right?
What did I sign up for with that?
Yeah,
crap?
Exactly. We're just going to talk about based on our experiences, what we've seen and our thoughts in regards to this topic. But Brandon, you were going to say.
No, I mean, I've followed along with what you're saying. I started trying to formulate immediately what I think it will hold long-term value in this hobby. My mind immediately goes to the older stuff, big Golden Age, Silver Age key first appearances, pre-code horror, Golden Age good girl art, stuff with, famous artists that are no longer with us, that made a huge impact on the comic fair market value and continues to today. That's where my head started to go.
Yeah, and I think that's a good start. JP, do you want anything before we can kind of dive in right there?
No, I don't want to throw this for a loop, but if we're determining value or what has value, then if you're saying that, then your expectation is for that value to hold or to increase.
I across the horizon, I would say, right? Because obviously we know we're in a volatile, we're in a volatile hobby, right? And we all bought valuable books in 2021.
No, but I'm saying like
we've lost money.
So but what you're saying is that this comic is going to increase in value or hold its value over the long run.
I'm saying so
if you're putting your money, because there's a difference when you say we're not talking about collecting styles. So if I like X comic book, I'm going to buy it because it's valuable to me. We're not talking about that.
Correct.
We're expecting this book to hold its value, but that has so many other increments, reasons why. So that's what I'm saying. Like, you were expecting the value to grow is what essentially should maybe be the prerequisite that the value is going to stabilize or grow.
Yeah, and again, across, I want to really emphasize, right, across the horizon. When we think about, like, Brandon mentioned Golden Age books or Silver Age books, right? These have been on a somewhat upward trend since their inception, and even modern books, right? That there are several books that they've gone up and they've gone down, but across the board since they hit the newsstand, the trajectory has been fairly upwards, right? And that's the kind of books that I want to talk about today. And I think, Brandon, I think you listed off a number of different things, but I think the easiest one for all of us to, I think, I'm sure will absolutely agree with, right, is first appearances, right? Or, that's kind of an unquestionable type of book, right? Any character, their first appearance is typically the most valuable book of that character. Now, I don't mean, before I say this next statement, right, which is like, I don't know of a book that their first appearance isn't the most valuable of that character's book. Now, someone want to be like, oh, what about Hulk 180, 181? So it's just like, we're not into that. We're not getting into that debate. That's not what we're talking about today. In general, though, like, I can't think of a single character where their first appearance isn't their most valuable book of their books. Can you guys think of any examples?
There is an example of that, but they're mostly on modern books.
Like what? Like what are we talking? Like, give me.
Spawn 1 isn't worth much as Spawn, that Arrow you were talking about recently in our chat, or some of the later Spawns I'm not sure if it's the hundreds or the 200s, but there are some low print run Spawn books.
Okay, yeah, that's good. That's a good example. Now, I will say, at least on the Air, like, those are kind of unique situations. But you're exactly right. You're right in the sense, like, there are some, like, later ones that have, like, lower print runs. Yeah, so there's probably some examples in the modern area of that. Yeah, but I think in general, I think we can fairly agree that first appearances are typically a good bang for your buck type of book to go after.
The other one too is Spider-Man 299 versus 300.
That's what I was saying. Like we don't need to get into the Hulk
McFarlane says that one's a first appearance. So that's
I know. But again, like for the broad general scope, right? Like that's a whole nother discussion.
It's not. It's tough when you pick a Silver Age book like Hulk. What is going to Hulk 1? What is going to be more valuable than Hulk 1?
Like in
the Hulk run, nothing.
Yeah, I mean, like after Hulk, right? Probably the next most valuable one would be like Avengers 1, Fantastic Four 12, Hulk 181, right? But yeah, Hulk 1 is right at the top there.
Yeah, you're not gonna 181's not gonna beat, and that's the first appearance of Wolverine, but that's in the Hulk run. So I think when you get to Gold and Silver Age, it's gonna be almost impossible to find. But when it comes to modern, you can find these Image independent, like Crow 1 is more expensive than Caliber 1.
Oh, right? That's another good example. Yeah.
All right. So I think it's slight though. It's not.
Yeah. Again, well, there are going to be definitely absolutely some outliers here, but I think in terms of like what's a valuable comic book, typically a major character first appearance is going to have something that you can kind of bank on for the long term. Another one I would say that would be my number one on this list, right? Like first appearances are across the board, I would say first appearances are the most valuable books in comics, right? Brandon, you kind of hinted at a couple examples of, but I would say the number 2 type book for me in my list would be classic, iconic covers. You mentioned Good Girl, you mentioned Pre-Code Horror. They all fall into, because last I checked, I don't know anyone that's reading Crime Suspense 22. We're all going after those books because of those iconic covers. And they'll, PCH obviously has some historical significance with the court sessions and the seduction of the innocent, that kind of thing. Right. But again, it's really tied to that classic cover. And thoughts there, fellas?
Yeah, no, I mean, like with the previous one, the first appearances, the caveat is like, I think that can really only happen in modern books.
Mhm.
I don't think you get that, like JP was saying, with historically significant characters in comics.
I thought of one, and I'm going to check it right now, but I believe the first appearance of Phantom Lady may be worth less than Phantom Lady
17.
17.
Yeah.
And that crosses over into the cover thing, right?
Yeah.
Because it's just a more desirable cover.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think first appearances would be up there as the top, especially, DC's even older than Marvel. What's Wonder Woman's first appearance? All-Star what?
All-Star 8.
All-Star 8. You see that, the Golden Age, Green Lantern, when these Heritage auctions go up, those books are always in there. And they're always, it's very rare that they take a bath, with that one, outlier, the Batman, or what was it?
The Tech 27.
Tech 27. Sold low, lower than, the guy took a huge bath on it. But I think it's such an outlier. Those comics are always on there. And yeah, I'd say first appearances and covers. Like, I love covers. I love art.
And covers, obviously, right? Like they can take a book that isn't even a key and make it valuable, right? Like Batman's, again, talking about Batman, he's got a couple
423.
423, I would say Batman 227. Again, I don't know the entire hobby, right? But like I watch a lot of IG sales posts and IG claim sales. And if there is a Batman 227 that comes up, that's at market value, right? Not if you put something at but like if it's at market value, that thing is snapped up immediately. And everyone will tell you that book has no significance except the cover is sick.
Is that the homage cover?
The homage of Tech 31.
Right. Yes. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's gorgeous.
Yeah. I mean, I think in my opinion, it's the best Neil Adams cover of all time. And yeah, I mean, it's just every time I see it, it's posted and it is gone. And I've even heard a few dealers on interviews be like, Batman 227 is the hottest book that we can get our hands on. Like it just comes and goes.
Do you own that book, Rohan?
Yes, I do. That was actually one of the first kind of in this classification of valuable. That was one of the earliest ones I got. And I just got lucky because I went into my LCS and a guy walked in with a Batman collection. I always remember because he traded him 2 Magic cards for it. And the guy left and then I bought the Batman 227. Yeah.
Must have been good Magic cards.
Yeah. I mean, apparently, I don't know anything about Magic, but yeah,
2 cards can equal a lot of comics.
Yeah, I know.
I got a lot of mine, so yeah, I'm sure that guy was just happy, just peachy to get him. So yeah, good grab on that. Yeah, that's one I don't think you'll. I mean, let's face it, all prices have dropped since the boom, but some certain ones like that, and the staples that will always go, like they stay, they're always going to be expensive. They're not going to go below a certain number,
Yeah. Another kind of interesting example in this kind of crossroads of first appearance and cover, as JP mentioned, the Phantom Lady book, is the book I would say I've heard dealers say the second hottest book behind Batman 227 is House of Secrets 92, right? It is the first appearance of Swamp Thing, but that's not the Swamp Thing that we all know and people had, that movies are made out of and shows are being made out of, right? It's a different Swamp Thing, but that cover, I mean, it's a top 10 cover for me all time. And so it has huge value. Like
You have that one too, right?
Yeah, I got that. That was one of the books I got in 2024. Yeah.
You got to do a collection update, man, at some point. Have you ever thought about that, doing like a collection update video? Because your collection is so finite, but so historically significant in so many ways. Have you thought about just like going through your slab collection?
Yeah, I mean,
or just books, period?
Yeah. I mean, it's probably like half. Again, I literally counted this weekend. It's like 22 books I think I have, and I think 9 of them are slabs. So,
I'm actually jealous. I would love to get rid of some books.
Yeah, Christopher Parker gets a house in 92.
Do you really want to get rid of all your stuff?
No. I meant like.
But I mean, what would you get rid of? A bunch of long boxes of stuff, or
right? Like, I'm just saying, like I have a lot of like raw comics and stuff that I like, covers and stuff that makes me happy. But my value is really in my slabs and on my wall. I have thought about like Rohan has like proved points about like saving money to go after these bigger books and how it's worth it more in the long run. Like you have fun buying some small books every once in a while, like at a comic shop, but like it does feel more rewarding to get those 200 plus books. And again, I'm leaving it to my kids, so that is like something that
So Brad, I mean, I always enjoy this conversation, so we can dive off a little bit. you said you'd love to. What's stopping you from kind of consolidating then? Like selling what you have that you don't necessarily love anymore and then using it towards what you would want to put on the wall?
Well, I mean, I do love every book, especially every book that I display, and I got to change out my display, but like Daredevil 1 through 10, like that's such like an iconic first weird run of weird rogues, and Daredevil I think is undervalued in the Silver Age. He hasn't had his day, even though like the Netflix show is great, right? Like Daredevil, like the Affleck movie is what it was in the 90s, but like he's never really done anything wrong to make his value not be there,
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a quirky and was an affordable run to get. I mean, I do love all my books. I could probably like transform them into one bigger book, but I wouldn't get to. I don't think I'd enjoy it as much. I could sit here and look at my wall and be like, "Oh, I love that book. Oh, I love that book. Oh, I love that cover."
It's the push and pull of the hobby, right? Like I've talked about it before. Right? A lot of people will say like, "Oh, I can't afford this or I can't afford that." It's like it's not you can't afford. It's like you haven't the priorities are pulling at each other, right? Like you love I mean, we all like getting stuff, right? So it's hard to like pull back on getting something every week and getting something every 4 months kind of thing, or also it's hard to let go of things, right? Especially in this hobby. So like, yeah, it's definitely a constant push pull between these things.
I think that my main reason why I don't want to get rid of what I have, because I know we're not talking about nostalgia, but that's why I have what I have.
Mm-hmm.
And two, I've seen way too many of these books drop in value to go drop $3,000 to $5,000 on a book, and then who knows where the hell it's going to be at. Like, There's a lot of stuff you can buy for that kind of money for, like, can do more than just sit on your shelf, I guess. And I have no problem with that, but I'm like, right now, like I had no problem buying 181, and then I bought it. I don't regret it. I did regret GSX-1, in a sense, but I got rid of it. I took a bath on it, but that's fine. But I'm like, I don't think I'm going to do that again. I'm just going to hold off until I really think it's a good deal that I'm really willing to move cash into that, because I don't know what the long-term value is. We're talking about that now, and will they hold their value? Yeah, probably. But I mean,
yeah.
Back to Rohan's point, though, if you were to sell those books and you get a book that we agree upon is only ever going to go up. Like if you could turn into a Hulk 1, that book hasn't gone, like it's gone a little bit, but like.
Yeah, but I think the bigger thing with JP and his situation with like GSX-1 is I just don't think, I mean, your taste changed, right? And he clearly lost some love towards that book. And then obviously its downtick didn't do it any favors in his eyes. And so again, this is why you always caveat, right? Collect what you like. And again, what you like is going to change. Like nothing's ever going to be set in stone. So no matter what you do, whether you sell books to get books or save up or whatever it is, when you do pull the trigger on something, just make sure it is what you love, right? That way, even if it does go down, you can still enjoy it. And then when it changes, you can move on. Yeah, you may take a hit on it, but again, you enjoyed it while you had it. And now you've used it to get something else you'll love for the future. JP got a couch and he loves that couch.
I do.
Great couch.
But I don't know how you enjoy a book. I know how you enjoy a Playboy, but I have no idea how you enjoy a book. I'm curious about that.
You sit here and go, Jesus Christ, that book's from 1960.
Yeah, I mean, he says that, but I mean, look at his display back there. But I want to put it here. Keith C's got another good example, but there's another one where great cover meshes with that first appearance. So X-Men 49, which is the first appearance of Polaris, is in fact not as valuable as X-Men 50, because X-Men 50 has obviously that great. Again, it's not my favorite personally, but everyone loves the green Steranko cover.
And Jason said Iron Fist 1's a lot less than Iron Fist 14. And I said that's because Sabretooth.
Because of Sabretooth. And Sabretooth is a bigger character than Iron Fist.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm curious. I have a third. If I had to, so we said first appearances, great covers. I'd have a third item on my list, but I want to hand it over to you guys if there's something you guys want to mention first.
I mean, I thought you said it when we talked about before, but I mean, I would have to throw signatures in there. Unless you put them somewhere else, I think they are very important.
Let's hold on the signature, because I want to talk about that a lot. So for me, I would say my next one down would be first issues of major runs. Now I know in like modern comics they've kind of bastardized this, that they literally like start a new run of ASM like every year, a new run of Black Panther every year. But like if you essentially go from, the 90s back, first issues of major character runs are always valuable, right? Or, have a fairly consistent value trend. Iron Man 1, Silver Surfer 1, Ghost Rider 1, Wolverine 1, right? These are all books that, have, for the most part, had an upward trajectory across their history.
But see, with
Avengers 1, right? Would Avengers 1 would count, right? As a Silver Age. And I am taking over the stream now, folks. I've actually hacked Rohan's computer, and we'll be playing with the Absolute Game of Nerds YouTube channel the rest of the night. A new show idea.
I don't know what happened. I just got cut out.
I just hacked your computer. I told everyone.
I got you.
Out. But yeah, no, Brad, you were saying Avengers 1. Yeah, I mean, Avengers 1 is not a first appearance of anybody. I really like the cover of Avengers 1.
But it's the start of that run.
The start of that run. I guess you could say it's the first appearance of the team. But yeah, I think in most ways it's the first appearance of the Avengers run, which is a run that's held its test of time. It's been popular since its inception.
But the Silver Age of those, not like Spider-Man #1, McFarlane does not. I mean, it's valuable, but there's so many different copies of it.
Yeah.
I mean, there are or whatever. The more valuable one of that run, Fantastic Four Volume 2, #1, is a Jim Lee cover, and that's not very valuable.
Yeah, okay. So I guess we can caveat like the first.
Like, what is the first? It's Volume 1.
Yeah, the Volume 1. Volume 1.
Wolverine, it's volume. It's miniseries.
But the limited series #1 is still something that.
Right. So Punisher limited series, Wolverine limited series. Then Wolverine 1 Volume 1 is not as valuable as the miniseries.
Yeah. Whichever the very first time there was a #1 issue of that run, we'll just say, if that helps to define it. Right. So that way in that limited series, volume series, it's still the first one there is.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think those are kind of the three I had. So I think too, we could also then take this over. Like there are a couple things that I think are often thought of as valuable that I don't think actually hold the test of time.
Here we go.
So there's a couple things, and we could talk first. I would say is like, I think like you get these a lot. These get hot because of movies specifically, but meetup keys I don't think hold their value long term, right? Like obviously this last year we had the Wolverine and Deadpool movie, so everyone jumped on Wolverine 88. Like that book went from like a $5 book to like a $200 book, and I don't know what it's at now, but it's not 200. It's not what it was, right? Or similarly, like I remember when I first started collecting, like the She-Hulk show was going to come out, and it's like, oh, Hulk 242, the first time Hulk and She-Hulk team up, and I was like, oh, okay, I gotta get it. I paid $40 for it. You could literally get that book for $5 now.
Oh yeah.
Like I mean, like there's so many examples of them.
But She-Hulk sucked as a show. Wolverine, Deadpool did not.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, but Wolverine 88 still is not what it was when.
No, but I mean, that's the difference between buying at the height or buying because you wanted it.
Exactly. But like my point being is like typically those books, like even though it's like cool, it's like the first time they met. I have not found any that like.
You have Fantastic Four.
I was literally just going to say the one example I would say that would be the outlier would be like Fantastic Four 12. Right.
Okay, I couldn't remember the number, but the first time
there's a lot of other things going on with Fantastic Four 12 though that I think also help kind of propel its value.
But I don't like the cover because it's Jack Kirby. It's terrible.
It's actually my second favorite Jack Kirby cover.
That's a great cover, JP.
Yeah, it's great. I love the gray and then the colors of the. I mean, I love it.
And how they're split between the caves.
Yeah,
like, the dichotomy. Yeah. JP, you just.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It is a crying shame that like so much of the original art of these books is now no longer exists. Like, could you imagine like seeing the original art to Fantastic Four 12? Like that would be incredible.
Something's gonna pop up someday, Rohan. You will.
I know.
Someone's gonna find it. Jack Kirby.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like there's that story of like how Jack Kirby and his wife would just give pages to their mailman, and one day he's gonna like not sound morbid, he's probably gonna pass, and then his like grandkids are gonna.
His grandkids are gonna come out and be like,
you know what I'm saying? Like,
his grandkids found it and said, "This is god awful," and they burned it.
Yeah, it's probably JP that finds it, just throws it out.
Sacrilege. What about like? Are you going to discuss newsstands and Mark Jewelers that bring value?
No,
did you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think I guess that is definitely. I mean,
that's like
that
a
kind
niche.
of
That's like a niche, right?
That's kind of like those color variant errors and things like that. Like, sure, yeah. But yeah, so I do think I'm not the biggest fan of the meetup keys. The other one I'm not a big fan of is outside of the golden age, I should say, in this next category. Like, I always think like people make big deals like, oh, it's so and so's first time art on this. Like, Jim Lee's first time drawn X-Men. This X-Men, was it 247 or 248? It's like a $5 book, right?
First Barry Windsor on X-Men.
Yeah, like people always make big deals about like, oh, it's the first time so and so drew this. It's like, it really is marginal value. What do we got there, JP?
First time published work by Todd McFarlane.
And how much is that worth?
$50 to $100.
50 to 100. I was gonna say, what is that like? It's like that. What's that first comic book? It's got like that wizard on it or something. You know what I'm talking about? It's like purple and yellow.
I thought you did one called Coyote.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, that's the one I'm talking about.
There we
Star
go.
Squadron.
Yeah.
That's not
That's not his first published art. It's Coyote 11.
Yeah.
Okay, but those are not super valuable books in this.
They
instance.
are. I mean, they're like $50 a piece.
All right.
But we're saying 200
200, JP.
Right.
200's a floor.
Yeah.
But I'm saying they've held value in that regard, but maybe $200 a floor. But it depends on the artist, because I just saw Samurai Santa, a CGC, which that gets me to the next discussion is going to be 9/8 that I wanted to talk about. Any 9/8 that can be valuable. So, but it was a CGC 9/6 of Samurai Santa or Santai Samurai or whatever it was, Jim Lee.
Samurai Santa.
I think it was almost $200 for it.
Yeah. I mean, people love that Samurai Santa one. I was more specifically talking about like an artist's first appearance in like the title that made them famous. So like,
well, I think once they get famous, people go back to like McFarlane's first published work. Samurai Santa is Jim Lee's first work, not on X-Men. So like that book's probably more valuable than his first X-Men. I have it. Like you find it in the dollar bin all the time.
Mm-hmm.
What is it? X-Men 280 something?
247, 47 or 48, that Colossus cover. Or even similar, like you can say his first work in Marvel is it Alpha Flight 5 interior, and then the Alpha Flight 6, which is that Wolverine like coming out of the Transformer. It's a cool cover. You could buy it for $2 though.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think McFarlane's first published work was that Coyote, and then he did DC, but his first Marvel was like Spitfire, and you can't find that one easily, but it's not that valuable, just like that.
Yeah. And then I kind of the third, before we can kind of start talking about like signatures, Brandon. The kind of third category, I think, and this is something that I find is very, very hot right now, it seems. And I'm curious your guys' opinions here. And again, I'm not saying I'm right, but I personally do not believe in foreign comics. And let me explain like what I mean there. Are they cool? Definitely. Like super cool, I think. Are they rare? A lot of them absolutely are, right? But like you oftentimes, I'll see these like people, they'll post up like, the Australian version of Daredevil 1, and it will be fractions of what an actual Daredevil 1 will cost. And then you'll see someone comment like, I don't understand why, it's so much more rare than the US version of Daredevil 1. But it's like those foreign comics came out years after the actual first appearance. So you cannot compare the Dutch version of Daredevil 1 to the American version 1 when it came out several years after. And so it's like the Daredevil 1 is valuable for all the reasons we discussed. First appearance, first issue, like that is where the value is. And when it comes out 10 years later in Holland, like, I'm sorry, it's just not the same. And like, sure, it's a smaller and they're rarer because obviously the Dutch print run is going to be a fraction of what an American print run, right? Because there's 10x more people in this country. So it's just like, when I see these comics, I'm just like, it's not the same, guys. That's why they're so much less valuable. So I'm curious your guys' thoughts there.
Yeah, foreign comic, it's just not my thing. It just doesn't do it for me,
Yeah.
Like, I guess I just want to own if it was a cool cover. Like, I'm not going after a first appearance.
Yeah.
I'm not going after a first appearance of a major character in another country.
And so Keith, you said unless a foreign comic came out at the same time, I don't know of any examples of when the like I know there are the Pence variants that were in the same print run of the American copy that came out. Those actually came out at the same time, and they are, they're a little bit less valuable, I think, from an aesthetic standpoint is why. But otherwise, they're right up there, right? But like, I don't know any other country that has a book that was printed at the same exact time that isn't the American version. Like all the foreign editions I see are all, months to years later, and so are no longer technically like the first appearance.
So what you're saying is you wouldn't buy.
I'm not saying I wouldn't. I wouldn't buy.
I'll give an example. Would you buy the Pence version of AF-15 if there is one?
No, I experienced this with Fantastic Four 12, and I found a great deal on a Fantastic Four 12, and I jumped on it, and it was the Pence variant. And I didn't think I cared. It's exactly the same. However, the only difference is so Fantastic Four 12 has that 10-cent bubble, right? And in the American version, the 10-cent fills up that bubble. On the Pence version, it's essentially an empty circle with like a typewriter tiny 9D. And it just throws off the comics like mojo completely, in my opinion. And so when I actually used that book to help, I traded it out to get to my Daredevil one. I remember I like put it up on Diamond Comic Club, and I was like, I know the 2.0 goes for this, but this is a Pence. What do I got to like take it down? I think I was like, honestly, you're going to have to probably like list it for about a third less. And I remember being like, oh my God.
Wow.
And he was like, that's just kind of what the data we've seen in all of our listings. Like that aesthetic difference people don't like it. And so I've seen Pence versions of the AF-15 JP, and they I don't know if a third less, but like they definitely are less desirable than the American counterpart.
I love that 10-cent bubble on those old books.
It fills up and it looks nice and it fits the rest of the book's aesthetic. It's just I don't know why they couldn't do like it literally looks like you took that typewriter and just did 90. Like it's just
I know what you're talking about. The font is like
it's just like it's so bad.
Yeah, I see an example of that because I'm not thinking about that right now.
Yeah, I'll send you a picture of my old FF12 JP, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Because I can show you compared to the new one. So Keith says French Canadian Hulk 181 came out at the same time, Heritage Edition. Cool. Yeah, that's something I didn't know. Yeah, but yeah, just good. I'm glad so it seems like we're fairly in agreement on the foreign comics then.
Yeah, I have no. Again, if you want to think about value tied to it and long-term value, if you're being told that FF12, you had to, sell it for, take a third off. What was it? A third off.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm handing these down to my kids, I want to make sure that they can get the max, because that's the ultimate goal. Whatever my books end up with when I depart this realm is my kids. And I want, if they want to keep some for nostalgia, but flip them, I want them to get the most possible they can.
And that's what I think, because foreign comics right now, I think, are really trendy. And so you're seeing a lot of the prices go up. That's why I believe that they're not going to hold up at the rate that they're increasing now.
Well, here's my other question is you have the 35-cent variants that are worth significantly more because they're rare.
But those also came out at the exact same time.
Correct. So if you have Canadian price variants, which came out at the exact same time.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. I should have mentioned that with the pen. Those were all in the same print run. So they all came out together.
So if AF-15 came out with a Pence variant at the same time, who's to say down the road that someone will say, hey, those are a lot less of those on the census than there are of regular AF-15s?
Yeah. I mean, hypothetically that could happen. I just think in those, again, like the AF-15 also has that like small 9D in it. Whereas like when you look at the 35-cent variant and the Canadian, the CPV, the price square it's almost identical aesthetically, right? There's no change. So when you're looking at it, there's nothing that's going to like jump off and look like that book is significantly different. But when you look at an AF-15 or you look at the FF12, like I was talking about, and you see the Pence version, to me, that tiny 9D compared to the much larger 10 cent is a significant like aesthetic degrade, lowering of the overall appearance of the book. And I think that's why you do see those sell for a little bit less.
JP, I think what you're saying, like AF-15 American versus 9. Do you guys think, versus Pence version, do you think it would come down to like these were made in America by, they were printed in America, they're part of America's pop culture, and then went off to these other places, other countries, it was an influence from America. Do you think like people like see that and they're like, I want to know that it's an American copy, like this is where it started? It was printed later in these countries. Do you think that has a factor in it at all?
Yeah, because they're not the ones that are after the fact are printed out with different stories or like that story plus some other things. But if you got just a Pence variant, all it was a changing of the stamp.
Yeah, no, yeah, you're exactly right. You're exactly right, JP, and you're right. They are more rare.
So it was made here in America. It was made in America.
It was made on the same as far as the research I've done it was made in the exact same print run as the American. They just obviously changed the little price box, right? But again, I think because of the aesthetic nature of that change is the only reason. Like it isn't like everyone acknowledges the Pence variant is more rare than the American counterpart on those Silver Age books, right? However, I think it's because of the aesthetic downgrade you get from that 90 is why they're not as designed. Like, again, if you're going to spend, let's just say $30,000 on an AF-15 3.0 American versus Canadian, you probably want the one that looks better. And I think most people would agree the American version. Now, there may be someone that loves the Pence variant, right? But I think across the board, we have enough data to show that the Pence value sells for a little bit less. And I believe it is because of that aesthetic difference between the price.
But then when you get in, then let me throw another caveat to you. The grade, the 3.0, we've seen examples of the GSX-1 that was like a 7.0 grade with a faded front that no one could get rid of because it was faded.
Agreed. So, yeah, like that's again. They're all little niches. Again, I just think like if you take your standard
the aesthetics of the Pence versus the aesthetics of a graded book that has fade to it or whatever, that all factors into people. And again, that's how you want to collect. That's not across the board,
Yeah. I always feel bad when I see those like faded books pop up on a sales post. I'm like,
I know,
guys, I get it's a 5.0, but you can't sell it at a 5.0 price if it's freaking no color in there. Like, sorry. Like, it's just not going to happen.
Someone will want that book, just not at that price,
Yeah, I mean, that's why someone buys that book, right? Because it's like, oh, I can get a 5.0 at that price, but it's faded.
Yeah, is it really a 5.0? That's another discussion.
Yeah, that's a whole other.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, there are collectors out there that buy that number versus the actual appearance of the book. So,
dude, I'm in a 0.5 collectors club on Facebook, a comic group, where people just love getting 0.5s for stuff like that, detached covers, stuff like that look awesome. And you see these books, you're like, holy crap, like it's a great looking 0.5. And it's such a small, minuscule thing that's wrong with it, yet it dropped the grade.
Well, yeah, I mean, a 0.5, right? You could have the back cover gone. The first front page could be flawless, right? But because that back cover is gone, it's a 0.5,
right? Because
it's incomplete. Or similarly, right, a page could be torn out. It's a 0.5 because it's incomplete.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I know there was a guy with that 0.5 of TOS 39 we showed on our thread the other day. That thing was complete. I don't know how that was not at least a 1.0 like that. And I actually saw the guy that bought it posted it. And I was looking at it again, and I was like, yeah, dude, how is this book a 0.5? Makes no sense to me.
Yep. Yeah. Greater that day, maybe, man.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, we can move forward here with so things you could do to kind of add value, or let's say, do we agree that they add value? So Brandon, you talked about signatures. I want to hear, what are your thoughts on signatures, specific signatures in terms of like who, what do you think on signatures?
Okay, so I think the biggest value that should come from signatures are icons of the hobby from like back in the day. So I just watched Spro's latest video with Mr. Longbox. He bought a FF3. It was qualified because it was missing a page, 3.5, but it had a Jack Kirby signature on the inside. I wouldn't care what was wrong with that book, like to have Jack Kirby signature. So anyone who's passed, that was iconic. So Stan Lee sold a ton of stuff, right? Like his value I think his value gets inflated because it's who he is, although he signed a ton of stuff. And I think it's very proportionate to the significance of the book that his signature's on. So a signed Daredevil 1 by Stan Lee is going to go for a lot more than a signed, Wolverine limited series 1.
Yeah.
I think it's very comparative, So I lucked out and got that John Buscema signature. I think it adds value to the Silver Surfer 4. Not as much as a Stan Lee would to that book. But I think it's also crazy because I don't have to look up numbers. I know John Buscema signed a lot less than Stan Lee. He lived a lot, less years than Stan Lee. So, but his signature he's not the creator of all things Marvel. So I think it's, the newer signatures of artists, I think you get those. Maybe you're specking that they might go somewhere someday. Or maybe you just really love that artist. I don't think they add that much value. I mean, I got David Mack's signature. I think he's a wonderful, amazing artist. He signed each of my Something Is Killed in Children books he did for $10 a pop.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't try to turn around and be like, oh, it was $100 book now, like you can go get his signature at cons,
Yeah, Walt Simonson there.
Walt.
So Christopher Parker said what Stan Lee signed to Ravage 2099.
Right.
I mean, I do think it's funny when what's up, Ryan? I do think it's funny when people get Stan Lee to just sign these modern books and things even also
hold on, that Ravage 2099 was his last written work. That's the last book he wrote himself.
Oh, I don't even know what Ravage 2099
That was his character. He wrote it, so that has significance for that.
Okay.
That's a good, cheap way to obtain his signature, though, because Mike got that book, a modern book that was signed by Stan Lee from his buddy that owns a comic shop, and he gave him a great deal because it's just on a newer book, So if you want a Stan Lee signature at an economical price, you go for one of the modern books he signed because I think his value really adds up exponentially when you get to his earlier works that he's more famous for.
We talked recently about, when you go to meet an artist, if you get the opportunity to do that and you bring them a book like Howard Chaykin wrote or drew Star Wars 1, and they talk about it, he hates that book for some reason.
Yeah.
But if you brought him one of his Black Kiss is an adult book that he drew and wrote, and it's pretty raunchy, he might be more inclined to sign that and think and get a more bigger kick out of that. But again, that's coming down to personal matters for why you're getting it signed. Really, it's what is the artist, what artist or writer or celebrity is going to bring the most across the board, right? They might appreciate the book that's off the wall that you brought them to sign.
Good call. Actors. I think about, how much is an actor's value? I think we talked about in this thread, should Hugh Jackman's signature on Wolverine or Hulk 181 really add that much value because he played him in the movies eventually,
Yeah, I mean, I'll say so. Matt, you make a good point, right? And I think people with signatures do get very particular on where I do. It's you see an FF5 and Stan Lee signs over Doctor Doom, and it's bro, this is Doctor Doom's first appearance, and you just scribbled your name over it. And it's
idiot.
Why? Yeah, you idiot. I think I agree with that. I think the most important thing, I do think getting a signature, especially if you do the whole whether it's you get it verified by CGC or you do one of their signature series events, it's not cheap to get a book signed. And personally, I would always I would tell people Stan Lee obviously does add a premium. Like Brandon said, depending on the book, the bigger the premium. However, I will say these past couple of months, I've seen people post some Stan Lee signed books for a crazy premium on top. And I'll give one example. There was an FF48 posted. I'm not going to say who the consigner is or what, because it wouldn't even blow anyone up. But it was signed by Stan Lee. It was a 5.0 or a 5.5, right? You could get a 5.0 or 5.5 somewhere in the $1,200 to $1,400 range, graded, unsigned, right? And they posted that FF48 for $3,200. And I'm who is given a $2,000 premium on a $1,000 book for this? That is ridiculous. And I've seen a few of these things like that. So I do agree Stan Lee does give a premium, but sometimes I see something guys, you need to chill on that premium there.
To speak to that, Ryan from Automatic Comics showed that video where DD1, I think it was a record sale of a Stan Lee signed, and I forgot the grade, but it went for like $9,400, and the grade it was in was only like a $4,000 book. So he's trying to like go through. He's like, how does this add $5,000 to this book? And it's sold. So maybe people are seeing that kind of hype and that kind of information.
Probably.
Like,
I mean, I'm sure there's definitely outlier data. Like,
there's going to be outlier data, and there's going to be how many DD1s have Stan Lee's signature on it. You know, so, and you can't get them anymore on that. So if you want, if Daredevil's your guy and you want Stan Lee on it, you know, I said in our chat, I would get my Iron Man 1 and I would have RDJ sign it. I'd have no problem with Robert Downey Jr. signing my Iron Man 1. If I had
what about if it was TOS 39, JP?
I wouldn't, no. But who would you get to sign that one? Stan Lee would be about it.
Well, or Jack Kirby.
But again, I wouldn't do that to that powerful of a book. Not that Iron Man 1 isn't that valuable, but I still would think it's cool to have RDJ on that one than TOS 39.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a couple Iron Man 1s signed by RDJ. I've definitely seen those. The kind of rule I would always tell people, like, getting signatures is not cheap, and it's not necessarily going to get you, depending on, like, again, Stan Lee offers some value. Jack Kirby, as you were talking about earlier, obviously adds some value. Todd McFarlane seems to be a popular signature people get. I would always tell you, though, like, if you're going to go to the effort of getting your book signed, I personally would think that you should get it signed because it would make the book more meaningful to you. Just because, like, if you do want to sell said book with no matter who signed it, right, there are absolutely a large number of collectors that hate signatures on books for whatever that reason is. So all you're doing is you are shrinking your potential pool of buyers at some point in the future down, right? Hence why I say, like, if you're going to get a book signed, do it for sentimental reasons. Don't do it for financial upside. Like, do it because it makes the book more special to you. Would be my advice.
I think that's more applicable to newer comics, though. Like, if you're trying to get a Stan Lee sig, like I do, I'm lucky enough. I have a Stan Lee when he signed inside the cover, like on the splash page. You know.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying.
Like, when you're accepting of that.
Exactly. I'm talking about, like, when you're going to get a book signed today.
Right.
Like,
yeah. Like,
I would just advise.
You're doing it for you.
Do it for you,
again,
not because you're gonna.
How do you want to collect type thing, but a Stan Lee on the cover is more valuable probably than Stan Lee on the inside.
For sure, absolutely. Like, so you'll have that niche, and then
I don't know. Do we know that definitively?
That's what I was going to ask.
I don't know if I don't know if it would be even much differentiation. I think if
it was graded, yes, it probably won't differentiate. But does somebody want to see signature on the cover? You know.
What about I know Stan Lee, the number of them used to sign the back covers of books.
Really? I've never seen that.
If it's graded and you can view it, it probably has more value than inside the cover.
Well, no, like I can't think if I've ever seen a Jack Kirby signature on the cover of the book. You see him
that's what Spro was saying with Mr. Longbox. Is
you see him on the
that
inside.
Stuff didn't exist. You know, like you won't find them on the front. You know, that stuff didn't exist where they're putting them on the front. You know.
What are you pulling out there, Brandon?
Well, he pulled out his book, so I'm pulling out my books with my.
There you go. I like that he put the year on it.
Yeah, 91.
Well, did the guy, whenever the guy got it signed, did he have to remind Stan Lee what the year it was, like Dan did to Walt?
No, Claremont.
Claremont.
It's 2024, sir.
The look on his face was priceless.
Oh, I love this. So this is the first clobbering time too. This is the first time the thing says it's clobbering time. And only like the second cover appearance of the Mole Man since I first fought. It smells good. Yeah, Kirby almost always signed in pen.
Yeah, that's true. I've only seen him sign inside with a pen. I've never seen it a different. Actually, you know what? Now that I take it back, if you go on Zap Comics Instagram feed today, they have what are those reprints of it was a Fantastic Four reprint where they have the silver border. You know what I'm talking about?
The milestones.
Yes. They today posted and Jack Kirby signed in a marker on the cover. And that's that now.
Is it for sale?
Yeah, I'm sure it is for sale. They posted. They didn't have a price, but I'm sure you can reach out to them for it.
That'd be interesting. I would want it on like an old book. Like if I was gonna hunt a Kirby signature, which God, that should be a collecting goal someday. And I should just tell JP I'll give him a finder's fee if he finds one and doesn't burn it in front of us. But that's a signature I'd love to have. I mean, I can't believe I own the one. Do you have any signatures at all, Rohan? That's interesting.
I not on a comic. No, I used to be when I first got into comic back into the hobby. I loved because I used to love as a kid. I used to love getting like athlete signatures, and so I was like, oh, I want to get these books signed. And then because I got them all I did it with the whole CGC signature, and then I was like, dude, it was super expensive. And then when I ended up using those books to fund something else, I was like, I didn't really make much more off of the signature. It was Jim Lee I got and John Romita Jr. on a ASM 223. Yeah, I got a bunch of Todd McFarlane ones, and it's the cost, what it cost me, I was like, this is not. I'd much rather now just take the money and put it towards the book.
Totally understand. I get that. I respect that. They're not for everyone, when I've showed signatures on my channel, people have, oh, you ruined the book, in the comments.
Yeah, I mean, some people literally despise it.
And it's I don't care. I want my kids to have this someday and say, who's this is a Predator book with Chris Claremont on it. Who's that?
Yeah, and I mean, I think when people, get over. To me, it bothers me when people are for example, when we were at Terrificon and Charlie Cox was there. I know you guys didn't, but I wouldn't be surprised if someone there got him to sign their DD1. And we've seen people flip out on people for doing that. And it's again, it's your book. Do what you want with it. That's their right. If it makes that DD1 to them more special, and maybe Charlie Cox is why they're a Daredevil fan. So it's I'm not going to hate on somebody.
Right. Maybe they're literally planning on being buried with that book. That's their most prized possession in the world.
Yeah.
Now, if you go to sell that book, you're probably going to have a damn hard time unless you hit the right,
Yeah. It'll be a niche collector and
you're not going to get much more for it.
Yeah.
Because, he's still out there signing.
That's something to consider down the road, because an RDJ signed Iron Man or a Charlie Cox or a John Bernthal Punisher may be worth 20 years from now because of what's going to come out, in these series. Because I've said this 100 times. I liked Iron Man, but I liked XO Manowar better at Valiant. I thought it was much cooler. Once I saw Iron Man 1 and RDJ, and ever since, I'm like I have an Iron Man 1 and I proudly display it. And I would have him sign it because I'm a fan of Iron Man again because of him.
Yeah. And I do think that you can make a pretty cool collectible, based on like Spro. He's here. For example, he showed us the other day, he showed that he's got a Daredevil book that's signed by Charlie Cox, John Bernthal, and who's the third one? There's a third person on there.
It's a Kingpin.
Kingpin. Yeah. No,
it might be Frank Miller.
Yes, it's Frank Miller. Yeah,
and he wants to get D'Onofrio. Yes. And that would be
because D'Onofrio is going to be at the Elite Con or whatever con that's called.
I get jealous every time I hear him talk about
that. Right, but that's that has Miller. He says
Miller.
That has made that item a cool. Now I have no idea if that book is a key or anything. It's a cool cover, but he's made it a cool collectible. Or recently, there's someone there. I don't remember what company is doing it, but they did a reprint of. Is it Action Comics 1, and they had it signed by 8 of the actors that played Superman. And it's again, am I going to spend my money on it? No, but that's a cool collectible. I think it's kind of that's a pretty cool, one of a kind type of collectible.
I think you'd have an easier time. Spro would have an easier time selling that particular book because there's so many. Those signatures, yes, you could go to cons and get all those people's signatures, right? You can get Charlie Cox, you get Bernthal. I don't know if Miller's still signing, but he's to sell that. When you sell that book, you're saving someone all that time to go get those signatures, to hunt those people down. And I think it's a rare piece that you don't see often.
No, that's what it comes down to, the rarity too.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Rarity, scarcity.
I will tell you one thing I would want to do. So I have each a piece of an animation sketch from the original X-Men the animated series and from the Batman Adventures series. Now, obviously, Kevin Conroy has passed, but if Robin, the guy who voiced Robin, I can't remember the name, was at a con, I would love for him to sign, not over Robin, but on the, it's a big page, be sweet to have him sign that. Or a lot of the X-Men voice actors have, that came back for X-Men 97 have been going to cons.
Yes.
I would love to get my animation sketch to have those signatures added to it. I think that'd be sick.
That is sick. I met Kevin Conroy.
Yeah, I know. I've seen your picture of that. Yeah.
Such a nice guy. And then, I think signatures, like to circle back around, I think that certain ones can add value, but there's certain ones you should just be getting because you enjoy them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's
JP, your internet's amazing tonight. I just got to say, man, this is fantastic. It's like a whole new.
After all these years, I've had countless people from Breezeline come to figure it out. I figured it out.
You can't just sit there quiet like you're lagging anymore, JP. Like,
I know.
We got you now. So what do you think, JP?
Well, I think that the signature comes down to who's on it. But again, we go into the realm of personal collecting because I would forever take an RDJ. I would take Mark Hamill on a Star Wars book.
Would you take Mark Hamill on a Joker book?
Heck yeah.
Yeah, I might. I wouldn't say no to it. Maybe a modern Joker book.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I'd rather go like a modern, like really cool, sick cover and Mark Hamill signature on it for sure. I'd get any voice actors. I think I'd go modern though, probably.
That's anybody on there. Again, that's the scarcity of how many people you get on there that are like, I don't want the book like it's covered in signatures and I can't see the artwork on the cover.
Oh so yeah, I
the way it's on there looks good. Right, you get too many more signatures and it's cool, but to save the time, but that's like a personal piece that I'm sure many people would want. But if you got all the voice actors for, name an anime on the comic, no one would care except, like it's niche in that regard. But there are certain things that niche bigger and certain things that niche smaller, I guess I'll say, when it comes to signatures and things like that. So. You're getting way too personal on your collecting how you want to collect. I think it's Stan Lee on an AF-15 is probably going to be worth more, but how much more? It's not $2,000, maybe it's $1,000, but
we've had that conversation a ton of times. Like when I was trying to buy my Stan Lee auto from Bigby, how much does it add to this? It's okay. It's a Silver Age FF. The only key is it's the first time thing says it's clobbering time, but it's in good condition. It was like a 5.0,
But that's something else we haven't talked about. It's clobbering time. First time he says it. First time Cap wields Mjolnir is not a $200 book, but it's valuable just for that fact, right? So first time, besides first time fights, it's first time.
So it's an event-based keys.
Event-based keys, yeah. And some are worth more than others.
And it depends on the age. Like the Mjolnir one maybe is worth more because of the movie, but it's. Clobbering times just because Stan Lee is, because it's a saying from the thing going back 40 years.
I'm trying to think of other famous sayings or
the Snicket, I think is.
Yeah. First time Snicket was used in a comic.
Wolverine, the Wolverine one limited is also like the first time that you'll get on Key Collector. It'll say like first time the phrase like I'm the best at what I do, and
what I do ain't nice or whatever.
Yeah, something like that. So.
I don't think that should add crazy. I think that's more of a, it is a historical point. Oh, here we go, Colossus.
I think it's kind of cool to get a ton of SIGs on a book if it's one of those comics that a huge roster of creators working on, like Mike Heroes. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool though because of that I would say like for Mike's case for that book, that it's created sentimental because it's a record of his experiences,
right?
And that's what makes that cool. But like for example, what JP was talking about is like we've seen like the one I see most commonly is the Hulk 181. And it'll be signed by like Stan Lee, John Romita, Herb Trimpe, Len Wein, like literally like 10 guys. And it's like the book looks like dog shit now. Like, I'm sorry, like it does not look good. And I get it was cool to you that you got like, but it just does not look appealing. No one wants to put that thing on the wall anymore.
I think signature on a comic is like a house with a pool or a house, like some people want it, some people don't, right?
Yeah.
It's right. I think if someone really did a good job of like figuring out signature placement and configuration on the book, so it looks classy and cool. Like if it's going down like a character's arm and another character, behind him. Like I think that's what was cool. Like I saw that X-Men 94 a couple weeks ago with that video I made with the guy with AF-15. And it was just all over the cover, like kind of speaking to what Rohan said. But I think there's someone out there they wouldn't pay the premium. Like there was a lot of passed away people on there, but like it's a piece of history because you can't get Trimpe, Stan Lee, Wine. It had a bunch on there that passed, but it did have Claremont. It did have some of the newer people. I think it's going to take like a historical collector that's not going to care about the overall presentation of that book, you know. So again, the niche shrinks. So
yeah, and that's why I know when you ask me about do I have any signature books, and I don't, because I always like to think too, like I've mentioned before, like if I do something happens in my life and I need to turn around and move these quickly, like I want to be able to do so at the best ability. So to me, again, I want to keep that pool of potential buyers as big as possible. But
yeah, I think
again, like
that.
Yeah, but I think like signatures are cool because they help commemorate, and that's kind of what I'm doing with my sketchbook right now. It helps me commemorate like my experience, and then you can do that with a comic book. So again, that goes to the sentimental side of things.
For sure.
What does Colossus say? I think doing something similar with an X-Men book that had a ton of creators, but I'm doing it with silver ink and it feels less overwhelming than a ton of black Sharpie. Again, it's the signature thing is based on the aesthetics of how it looks. Like placement, color's a big thing, obviously. I always feel bad when people like send something into like a CGC signature series. They're like, sign here in pink ink or whatever it is, and it's like it comes
I did it.
Or I mean, like, yeah, you're a freaking Brandon, your Man Thing book.
Yeah, I was like, sign here in silver, please, and he obliged that. But then the signature, the pen must have been run, so that was a risk I took. The pen is running out of ink, so it's not a dark signature. You have to hold it at the right light to see it. It's on there. But the trade-off was that is I got a grade bump from a 9.4 to 9.6. So I was like, well, I guess you got to take the good with the bad. Like this could have gone the either way,
Yeah.
If you can find one for a good price on eBay for somebody you like, then that's the way to do it for me, because I don't want to spend the time.
Yeah.
But like the experience you talk about, the Keanu experience you guys had, you and Ricky had.
Yeah.
It didn't cost you much at all to get that signature, but it was well
just
worth
the price to go to Terrificon because it was all free.
And your sleeping time.
And my delusions as I walked into the con and saw you guys for the first time and they go take a nappy nap. That was a rough day, but it was totally worth it. I mean, like I will probably get. I think I'd like to get that slab just to like commemorate that. Like, again for my kids that will be a book I will never sell, obviously, because it's such.
You should instead of getting a slab rated, you should like see if you can get like a custom frame with the book and the picture together. That would be
put
cool.
it in a comic capsule.
And then stick it on a black wall or whatever.
No, I'm going after those the Crafty Comics I've been looking at, and I'm in a contest to possibly win one. But I watched them previewing that on a show the other day, and it looked like a cool, like you put it in between the plexiglass, you screw it in, it's 99.9% UV protectant, has 2 places to hang right in the back. So I'm gonna try that with a raw book because I do want to display more and like move some stuff around, but I don't want to build more shelves, But like, how can I protect it without sending it to CGC? Because I probably won't do that again this year. But regardless, where were we on signatures? Like, did we wrap up signatures?
Yeah,
I mean, kind of, yeah. Yeah. Was there something else you wanted to add on to that, Brandon?
No, I think we did a good job of covering that. I think everyone's pretty much in agreement.
What have we missed? Have we missed anything?
We brought up items that like clobbering time and events, right? So we have that.
Yeah.
I think that's way low. I think that's way low. Like first events aren't like
events would kind of be with me, like same with like the meetups. Like it's not up there for me.
Oh yeah, because you know what? You think about it, like I don't know if it was Spider-Man issue, was it 93 or 96 when Stan Lee went against the code? Like it was a drug issue. And he was like, no, I'm going to publish this without the code on it. And they got all mad at it. It was like 70 or 71. And
I had no idea of this
it's like the only book from that time you'll see it doesn't have the Comic Code Authority stamp on it. So it's like very historically significant, and it ushered for the Bronze Age for the code to loosen up. And then you had the Speedy, which what I call another event book, was the Green Arrow, the drug issue with him shooting heroin on the front. That's just an event of what happened, but it's like a piece of his. But those books aren't crazy expensive.
Yeah, actually, that actually makes me think though, Brandon, of. That makes me think of an area that things that are taboo do create some value that lasts. Like think about like there's that Tech 37, the hypodermic needle cover of Batman. You know what I'm talking about, where he's grabbing that doctor and he's got the hypodermic needle.
Yes.
Right. I mean, Good Girl falls into that, right? That's kind of the taboo. Or again, we're not trying to trigger anyone here, but like they have those books that were made in World War II that do not display the Japanese culture in the most uplifting light, right? Like those would be taboo today, but are highly collectible because of those taboo purposes. So I think that's another classification. I think JP's laughing.
Ryan, because of what Ryan said.
R2D2 donor card is the C3PO donor card.
C3PO, get it right, nerd. Jeez, what kind of friend are you? No, I agree with you. I think they're, but I think, like I would separate that from classic covers to taboo covers.
Yeah.
That are desirable because again, they're historically significant. They show a different time in our country where like we've come a long way from that. And what were you gonna say, JP? You really want to jump in? You look like you're.
I don't think the Japanese covers that are, I guess, taboo. There are some African American covers too that are taboo, but that doesn't stop. Like there's a collector I know, he's on IG or YouTube that collects those, like the Negro Comics is the name of the and he collects those because that's cultural, significance to him, right? So it doesn't mean just because it's taboo for one, even though that culture or that person who's of that race may still get it.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah, I think that the taboo nature makes it highly collectible to a lot of people. Yeah.
There's also the Lois Lane, Superman's girlfriend, Lois Lane, where she.
I saw Crazy KKK magazine for the Twitters at TorpedoCon, owned by a black comic shop owner too. Yeah, kind of like a sense of irony there. Yeah, I get that.
But there's a Lois Lane that she becomes black for a day.
Yes, that's a valuable comic because of the cover and the taboo that made a lot of people mad. So drug use covers, any kind of racial covers that depicted the times, sexy
JP,
covers.
You talked about, isn't there? Now it's not. I guess it doesn't meet our $200 threshold, or I don't remember what's that Batman and Robin book, JP, where like. Didn't you told me about it? Like Robin gets assaulted and therefore.
Nightwing gets.
Nightwing
99. But that's not that. I mean, it's not so much the cover as it is the story.
That's what I'm talking about. Like he gets like sexually assaulted in it, and like I guess I don't know.
Yeah, that's a pretty like I've got that. Los's Comic Journey gifted that to me. That's a pretty expensive book for a modern book because of the story. Alf humping a seal is sought after. Absolutely.
Colossus knows them all.
First appearance Noah. First appearance of items or places.
We did talk about that. I mean, are outside of like what are books that have high value that are first appearances of places or items? Like what would like we start with items? What would be a first appearance item? Like I mean, like the first Infinity Gauntlet is like a $40 book.
Fantastic Four car.
Fantastic Four 3.
Issue 3.
It's issue 3, but that's also first uniform, first car.
Uniform and car. So you got.
But that's not as valuable as FF2.
Actually, is 2? It may actually 3 may be more valuable than 2.
You think so?
Yeah, I think just because the 2 is like I feel like no one cares and likes Fantastic
Four. It's a weird 2. Cover, right?
It's super weird, and in Fantastic Four 3, I would say cover. Of the first 10 issues, it's the best cover. It's awesome.
Doom over Doom, man.
I think it's a cooler cover than FF5. Yeah, I do. Don't get me wrong, I love FF5's cover, but I think Fantastic Four. My one issue with Fantastic Four 3 is Jack Kirby drew Thing horribly on that cover. Like it looks so bad. But I think the whole thing with like the car and them on it, like I think it's sick.
Yeah, Kryptonite's a good one. I think people would want the first appearance of like.
Is the Noah, is the first Kryptonite a Golden Age Superman book? Because I mean, like, that's also gonna have a lot to do with the value of it.
No, Spro, he said FF3 was better than FF5.
FF3, yeah, not FF2. FF2 sucks.
Noah's just naming Cosmic Q. I just don't think those are those.
Yeah, I don't think those hold up. Those
push the value crazy.
Yeah. Those, and then what about places? Like, are there any
Asgard? I mean, Wakanda is in FF52. I mean,
that's valuable because of the first appearance of Black.
Right, exactly.
But I mean, I know there are like kind of going back to the first time it's like you do get key collector will identify like the first time adamantium was used in terms of the word adamantium.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And same thing, like it's like Avengers 50 something. I think that the first time the term Wakanda, or no, FF, maybe it was not FF52, but I think a later FF after that, like it's the first time they actually used the term Wakanda and things like that. But like those are all kind of marginal, I would say, value wise.
One that may not hit that $200 value, but probably is close, is going to be your 9/11 book for Spider-Man ASM 36.
The all black cover.
Yep, if it's high grade, you probably get it for $200.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a tough one to get.
Yeah. And I would say too, probably when you talk about that 9.8 JP, is probably because it's just super hard to get a 9.8.
Right, which again comes down to though, just any random 9.8 is going to be valuable. Probably edging close to $200.
I mean, no, you could definitely find a number of 9.8s like for under. I mean, like X-Men 4 Omega Red's first appearance, you could get that in a 9.8 for $100.
Mm-hmm.
But I see these ones like 9.8 of that. I'm like, okay, so like I wouldn't pay that for it, but it's a 9.8. But you find a high grade Silver Age book, you're gonna get big money for it.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's just because again, like a 9.8 is hard to come by for sure.
Or no, not even 9.8 on a Silver Age. I'm talking like a 7.5 or an 8, like whatever, like the highest on the census, because it's the highest on the census.
I think grading conversation is different. I think we're just focusing everything explodes when you're talking grading.
I said we were talking about what makes comics valuable. I'm saying like if it's the high, that's I was just thinking.
Yeah, I mean like that would be like if you could say what are things you could do to your comic books to add value, right? I mean, grading would be certainly on that list, right? So,
I mean, buying the highest value, highest grade you can find if you don't care about what you're spending for it to get that, Right.
Yeah, but in terms of like events like this, first Ghost Rider 3, first Health Cycle, again,
you got to be a big Ghost Rider fan, right?
Like that's like, such a niche thing. Like I don't think that those really
not knocking it. The Health Cycle's cool, but
I don't find that those end up going up for the long term value. But yeah, I mean, I think we've covered a lot of the bases. We missed anything else, then?
I know. I think we covered a lot of what really brings value to comics. Besides personal, you remove the personal stuff and just say, okay, this is what makes them valuable. And I think we're in a down slope. Obviously, we're at I think we bottomed out, and I think everything's cyclical.
Brandon's declared it. January 29th. The bottom of the market has been achieved. Mark it down, people.
Or close to, I guess.
Brandon owes you money.
It's cyclical, I think these books will go back. Like we're all saying like how much we paid a lot more for books 2-3 years ago than they're worth right now. But I think they will regain that value over time. Might take 5 years, 10 years, depends on what stuff comes out that affects them.
My kind of thought, like I agree, like. Are we at the absolute bottom? I mean, we will never be.
Yeah, I don't know if we're the absolute bottom, but we're getting pretty. Like
I think we're in a bottom level-y kind of moment. But however, I personally don't think that we'll start to really. I think we'll kind of be here for a little while.
Right.
I want you think about it this way: if you go back to the '90s, the comic books that became valuable in the '90s or popularity were the artists and image books and whatnot. At the same time, the stock market was going crazy, and a lot of .com companies were very valuable. After you blew them all out and the .com burst and the 90s crash of comics, what stayed? Like Pets.com is not even a valid company anymore in regard to value, but Microsoft and Apple, which wasn't part of that boom, is. So your Fantastic Four, Amazing Spider-Man, Silver Age books are still popular now. Most of those Image got wiped out. They don't have the value. Very few of them still do. Amazon made it through that bubble burst and moved on forward, right? But there weren't very many. So think about this time, all those moderns that became very popular in the 2020, those are going to lose, like not many of them will survive forward.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the heart of this discussion, right? Like what is going to last are the tried and true things that we talked about, right? First appearances, iconic covers, first issues of, first edition runs, things like that. Like those are tried and true. And they,
but again, going back to what will be in the future, do you think a Miles Morales first appearance will have value?
Yeah, I think Miles Morales will have value, because I mean, like, value, obviously, right? It's a combination of both rarity and demand. It's not rare. It's not rare, right? But like, if a character's popular enough, like it can still be like. Then I think Miles Morales
for sure.
I mean,
from the comics,
comics
into the Spider-Verse, dude. Into the Spider-Verse was,
and like, if you, I know,
the best animated stuff that's come out. JP, what are
you
talking
and like
about?
the thing too
is
like,
the movie is, but the comic itself, they've had various different volumes of Miles Morales because it doesn't carry a title. Marvel can't sell.
No, I think that has. I mean, does Miles Morales sell?
I'm not saying he as a character doesn't, in my opinion, or not. I'm just saying, like, will certain things that came out of the 2020 boom, I'm just using that as an example, will that propel forward? That is a key significant book.
Yeah, but Miles Morales came out in 2011. I think
but it got way popular with the movie in 2020. So I'm saying, as we go through this warsh cycle, as we say it in Pittsburgh, warsh cycle, warsh, what's going to come out of that?
Yeah, I think Ultimate Fallout 4 will always retain. I mean, I do think because of the number of copies, right? Like, I mean, like, it has 4,009/8, right? Let alone how many tens of thousands of other grades there are. Like, there is going to be a ceiling, I think, to it. But I mean, I think Miles, like, we're an older generation, but like, kids these days that follow Spider-Man, like, for a lot of them, Miles Morales is their Spider-Man. So yeah, I would be a full long-term believer in Miles Morales, and therefore,
if he makes it on the big screen in live action, I think you have a chance. But the fact that these movies have been delayed and whatnot, that plays a role into this whole thing. How many of those comics are selling plays a role into it, and that's the issue. Is that is it a meaningful book? Yes, but will it last the test of time? I don't know. Like, there's so many Hulk 181s, but those still retain value, even though there's so many more popping up on the census, because Hugh Jackman is Wolverine. Wolverine is a tried and true character. I don't know about Miles. I'm hoping so, but I'm just curious that you may have some fade out here that went through that cycle and got,
I mean, if you had asked me, would I believe Miles Morales retains a high level of demand, I would say yes. I would bet yes on that, right?
I'm reading, he's in Aliens vs. Avengers that I'm reading right now, that with Justin from No Good Comics, and he's awesome in it. And it's a great read. He brings it as a character, like, he's got the Spider-Man. He had a symbiote suit, but it morphed, it like joined with a face hugger. So now instead of the spider on his suit, it's a face hugger, and he's rocking it, and it's badass. Like, he's such a cool character in those books. So I think if they keep doing stuff with that, even if it's not his own series, but they're bringing him in other stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, like, my son, for example, likes Miles. He's very popular with the young generations. So I believe, obviously time will tell, but I definitely believe Miles, is someone that is here for the long term. I mean, my personal thought is, I think both Miles and Gwen are.
I was going to say, those are the new generation's characters, man.
The new faces of Marvel, I would say, for the next generations is Miles and Gwen.
JP doesn't like that. JP also doesn't like Jack Kirby, so I don't know how much I go.
Oh, we never consummated the bet, but we talked about that 9/8 UF4, and he said it wouldn't hit that spot before the movie came out. So now you're saying that you have longevity.
No. I'm saying that I do believe the character will always be popular. Now, the value of UF4, like I said, itself specifically, it's going to have some value always, yes, but I do think that there is a ceiling on where it can go. Like, for example, if we go 60 years from now, would I say UF4 is going to be akin to AF-15 today, which is 60 years after its inception? I would say absolutely not, because of the number. Like, again, there are as many 9.8s of UF4 as there are AF-15s on the census, right? Like, it's going to just similar to, I mean, New Mutants 98 would be another example of this, right? Like, Deadpool is extremely popular, but because it's a modern book, will say, like, there is going to be a ceiling on it because there's just so many of them.
Yeah,
yes,
for sure.
JP also made an outlandish claim about the X-Men today. Correct, Colossus. Colossus is here with
What did I
receipts.
say? I forgot what I said.
You said
What'd I
it
say?
said something. Colossus said, "I just want to start with I don't want to see the X-Men grow up. I want to just start with a badass team." And then you said something along the lines of, "There's never been a badass X-Men team."
There's no such thing as a badass.
Oh yeah, that's what it was. There's no such thing as a badass.
Don't be salty about your GSX-1,
Yeah.
JP. Don't be salty.
Oh, I'm
about
not.
it.
I don't regret. I got rid of my subby one recently. I don't really regret that either. So
Yeah. JP, every time you think about how badass the X-Men is, just sit on that couch.
Yeah.
I do.
And eat some chicken salad and just relax for the night. Stretch out.
I'll tell you what, I just watched Matrix again with my daughter, and she told me she hated the ending of that movie.
Of the first Matrix?
Yeah, I said that's the best. That's the best movie in 25 years. Top 5 in 25 years. One of the best endings.
For you, here we go.
You.
Well, you can rent out her room and kick her out because
I mean, I to be honest, like, I'm not a huge Matrix guy, so
it's part of the Trenchcoat Trinity: Matrix, The Crow, and
I don't like The Crow either. You guys know that.
Matrix. What's the Trenchcoat? Matrix, The Crow, and Blade. The Trenchcoat Trinity.
I did love the Blade movies when I was young.
I don't know how you don't like Matrix.
I don't know. I like the Matrix. Like, it's a cool movie. But like when you talking about like best movie of the last 25 years,
there's a lot more on there we can name.
I don't think you can name. I can't name 5 better movies. I left that theater in awe. That was the greatest. Last 30 minutes of my life watching that movie was badass. So
JP's life has just been a slow downhill descent
until Endgame came out, and then after that, the greatest part of my life was when I met Rohan.
Hey, there we go. And that climaxed at Terrificon.
Yes.
From then. Awesome. Well, Brandon, I think we're at a good start point. I don't think you got to get to bed, man. You got earlier bedtime or earlier rise time than me. But thanks, my man, for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, it sucks in upstate New York right now. We already had like 3 feet of standing snow, and then we got 6 inches last night. And we're supposed to get 3 to 5 more tonight. It's a literal blizzard out. It sucks. So it was really nice to sit down at the warm glow of my Mac and talk to you guys and just disappear from it for a minute. So thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate you having you. Thanks for being on this momentous episode where I have actual real internet for a while. So
moving forward, JP will have real internet.
I feel very honored that you didn't lag once, JP.
Yeah.
You didn't lag once. Thanks to the chat for showing up, all the guys.
Yeah, we've had about 10 people in here all night. Thanks, fellas. Thanks for joining us. Noah, Chris, Renegade. Renegade, by the way, I saw you said you want to get an MS5. If you need some help finding one, hit me up on IG.
Rohan's a headhunter.
Yeah, I enjoy helping people, so let me help you out if you're looking for it. But yeah, otherwise, JP, why don't you take us out?
All right, guys, always believe in yourself. Remember, The Matrix is the best movie ever. Peace out.